Good afternoon, everybody. And sorry to keep you waiting. We were trying to get all the sound ready for a beautiful performance that you will see today. My name is Surbhi Kaul. I'll be hosting the King of Ghazals today. It gives me great pleasure to be here doing that. And before I invite Mr. Pankaj Udhas on stage, I will say a few words about him and give a brief introduction. So, as you all know, Padma Shri award winner Pankaj Udhas sir has been in the music industry for more than 3 decades. He started his journey with ghazal singing in the 80s and produced many amazing albums like Ahat, Mukarrar, Tarannum. And then he made his debut in the film industry with a very iconic song that we will talk about. I'm sure it resonates a very beautiful chord in our hearts with that song that we will share with you. And he continues to do a lot of work even today. He will be talking about some of his recent projects. He is also very involved in a lot of nonprofits that he will talk about today. So without further ado, let me invite Mr. Pankaj Udhas on stage. Please give it up, a warm round of applause.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Please have a seat.
Good afternoon.
सबसे पहले तो आपके फैंस की तरफ से, गूगलर्स की तरफ से, I just want to give you a very warm welcome. आप ही के अल्फाजों में कहती हूँ, आप जिनके करीब होते हैं, वो बड़े खुश नसीब होते हैं. So today we are the खुश नसीब ones. Thank you very much. And
Thank you so much.
As we were talking over lunch, you have come to the Bay Area many, many times.
Oh, yes.
But this is your first time at Google.
Google, yes.
So can you share a little about your experience over the years in Bay Area and how is it different today?
Well, it's first of all a very good afternoon to everyone here. And it's indeed a pleasure to be here in this part of the world and especially at the Google headquarters. As I shared with you this afternoon, that when I was talking to the immigration officer on my arrival, he asked me as to have I been to this part of the world before, and I told him that I first came to United States for a concert tour in 1986, which makes it about 32 years. So he looked at my face and he says, "Are you sure?"
Like that was before I was born.
And he was a young gentleman. He couldn't believe that I've been coming to this wonderful country for 32 years now. Oh yes, Bay Area is one of my favorite destinations in United States. A lot of warmth, a lot of like the sunshine. People are very, very warm, very bright, very receptive, very hospitable. And the best part is that the response here is always overwhelming. Mm-hmm. The last concert which I did here about 2 years back was sold out on my arrival, and this time also. In fact, when I arrived here, I got the news that the concert tomorrow, which is happening tomorrow, mm-hmm. is sold out. And with so much of response and so much of demand, they decided that they want to do one more concert. So they've announced a second concert on the 4th of March. So that's what Bay Area is, and I think that's really wonderful.
Yeah, I think we all love to have you here. And as you said, your show tomorrow is sold out, but there is a second show. So for those of you who have not bought the tickets yet, we'll give you information about that. So I wanted to actually get started with your journey.
I would say that it's more of destiny. It's more of, I guess, sometimes you feel that you are destined or you are sent here to do a job, mm-hmm. or you are sent here to carry out a particular mission. When I was growing up, I grew up in the radio era. Mm-hmm. When I was growing up, when I was a child, there was no television. Obviously, there were no computers, and there were no mobile telephones, and right. So the only source of entertainment was radio. And I think the first influence during those years was Begum Akhtar, the famous ghazal singer. I used to listen to, I was quite intrigued because I was too small to figure out as to who she was, what she sang, but her voice and her style really appealed to me. And then slowly I inquired and I got to know that she was India's pride, and she was the first lady who popularized this form of music, which is ghazal.
Right.
And she had a peculiar voice. She had her voice was very, very different than the normal female voices. So it really suited this kind of singing. And I guess that impression lasted forever. And I think that was my initiation into ghazal singing. That's when I got inspired. And then I started following this form of music religiously.
Right.
And then obviously came the issue of language, because ghazal, as you know, is basically the medium, the language is Urdu.
Yeah.
And it was again a coincidence that my eldest brother, Pankaj Udhas, who was a very famous playback singer, so Manarji was learning Urdu from a very, very renowned Urdu teacher. Manarji was learning Urdu because he was pursuing playback singing, and he wanted to really refine make his diction very refined.
Yeah.
And he wanted to make sure that whatever he sang was perfect. So for that he was learning Urdu, and it was his teacher who actually really inspired me, who really, in fact, impressed me. And one fine day, with a lot of hesitation, I gathered courage to ask him if he could teach me Urdu. And he readily agreed. He said yes. And let me tell you that his first reaction was like he was aghast, because I was.
How young were you at that time?
I was. I'm talking about the hippie era.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, obviously studying in college, and I was swayed by that era.
Yeah.
So I had long hair, and I used to wear bell bottoms, and
So I'd love to see a picture of that.
So he was like, "Are you sure you want to learn Urdu?" And I said yes. So he said, "Fair enough," and then he started teaching me. I think that made me even more determined that I wanted to pursue this particular form of music.
Very nice.
And with him, I read a whole lot of Urdu poets, starting from the what we call Ustad poets,
Right.
poets like Mirza Ghalib and Mir and
Fair.
Nag and all those stalwarts. So I think that really sort of got me into this entire ghazal singing format. And I think this ultimately, I guess, once I got involved, this ultimately became a passion.
Yeah, that we can see in your singing.
And that passion continues even today.
Yes, definitely. So now let me ask you how you ventured from this ghazal singing into the Bollywood industry, and how and when did that happen, and then what was your overall experience with that?
Well, as far as cinema, as far as Hindi films are concerned, again, it's a great story to tell. It's a great coincidence that not very many people know about it, but probably I've saved it for my book, which I'm writing now.
Okay.
And hopefully I'll release it. I'll launch my book by end of this year.
Okay.
So
We would love to have you again. Sorry to just say that.
Yeah,
when you do your
sure.
book signing, we'd love to have you over and talk about that.
I'll come back when I'm ready with my book. Certainly, I'll do that. So when I was in college, I still remember one day, in those days, as I said, we didn't have mobile telephones and things like that. So my elder brother came to college and he told me that there was an urgent need for a film song. there is a wonderful music composer, lady composer called Usha Khanna. Usha Khanna ji is a very famous music director. She's done music for many movies. So she was composing for a film which had a new star cast. All the actors in that film were newcomers. So they wanted a different voice. They wanted a young voice. And I'm talking about the era when we had stalwarts like great maestros like Mohammad Rafi and Kishore Kumar and Mukesh ji.
I see.
So I went to the studio and I was told that we've selected you to sing a song. And I rehearsed the song, and next day I recorded the song. And this was a film called Kamna. And the film was released, and obviously with new star cast and with not much to, not much of a gloss. The film was not a big success at the box office. But the song was released and it played on the radio, and there was a small record. In those days, there were no cassettes.
Right,
so it was just a record. So that's how I started. And I guess I was probably 20, 21 years old. And then somewhere in my heart, I knew that I was up against a huge competition because they were all great maestros, and I was I was a newcomer, basically. However, I tried, and obviously I didn't succeed as a playback singer in cinema. So my heart was always with ghazals, and cinema was, though it was an attraction, I wouldn't lie, but it was never the first choice. The first choice was always ghazals, and even today it's ghazals.
Yeah.
And then got to the stage when this particular film was being made, Naam. And there was a situation in the film where the lead actor, the protagonist, Sanjay Dutt, had left the country and was living abroad. And there was a situation that the story required for him to come back. So how do you bring him back? So there were many discussions, and they were all legendary people involved in making of that film. Rajendra Kumar, the famous actor, was the producer of the film, and Mahesh Bhatt was directing the film, and Salim Saab, who's part of Salim Javed team.
Right.
So Salim Saab was writing the screenplay and story. Lakshmikant Pehlal, they were doing music, and Anand Bakshi was writing songs. So they were all legendary people involved. And obviously everyone had a different opinion. So it took them a while to figure out. But I guess the story writer Salim Saab was very adamant. He was very sure that he wanted a real life singer to portray, to perform this song in the film.
Right.
Because he felt that it should be a singer, a popular singer, who should sing this song. So it looks very authentic. And
I was going to just share with people who don't know which song you're talking about, which would bring somebody back home. Why don't you give the name of the song too?
It is the famous Chitti Aayi Hai. And so after many discussions and all, they figured out that they tried to figure out as to who was the popular singer then. So obviously they all discussed, and they felt that they needed a young popular singer, and they all decided that it was me. So that's how they picked me to sing this song, and they said that they wanted me to perform this song in the film as well. There was a very funny incident, in fact, because I still remember that Rajendra Kumar ji called me up, and I had seen him from my childhood. and he had those hit films. And I was a big fan of his, and especially Rajni Kumarji had done a lot of musicals. Uh, he had acted in many movies where the music used to be fantastic. So I used to love those films. So when he called me up, I was like really thrilled to receive his call. And he probably hadn't realized. So he just in that excitement, he told me that, Pankaj, you are acting in my film. So I was like, acting in your film? So he said, so I didn't want to commit right away, because when he said acting, I was a little skeptical. So I said, can I call you back and let you know? So he said, okay. And then I didn't call him back because I was scared to call him back, because I was not prepared to be an actor. Because with great difficulty, I had made a name in the field of singing. And I said, where am I going to start acting now? So I held back. So when I didn't return his call for a couple of days, he called my eldest brother, Manerji, because they were very friendly. So he called my brother and told my brother that your younger brother does not have any decency because he's not returned my call. So,
got in trouble.
So I got a call from Big Brother. He says, no, you shouldn't do this, because he's such a senior actor, and how can you? So I told him, I said, there is no other reason for me not returning his call. But I said, I'm only, rather unsure whether I want to act or not.
So this was not a very common thing that used to happen in those times. I think this was the first time
Correct.
that they experimented with this.
So he told me, he said, in that case, call him up and tell him that you don't want to act. I said, fair enough. So I was shaking. I called him up and I said, sir, sorry, I didn't return your call because I got taken aback, because I said, I'm not prepared to be an actor. So he laughed loudly and he said, oh God. He said, no. He says, we don't expect you to be an actor, but we want you to appear in the film as Pankaj Udhas, and we want you to appear as yourself and sing the song so that we can say that this is Pankaj Udhas performing in an auditorium. And that's how the song came about. And
it was a huge success. This song was like phenomenal. It just, placed you on the map of Bollywood.
Yes.
And so I wanted to come back to the question. You said you tried, and then you got this fame.
So
in
just
the
see
world.
just see the fate, just see the destiny. That something where I was probably refused, rejected, or not exactly rejected, but I was, I would say, overlooked probably.
Yeah.
And suddenly I find that, all those people wanted to embrace me and, wanted me to work for them.
Yeah.
So I guess it's at the end of the day, I think it's destiny. Yes.
Yeah, and after Naam, you did many other playbacks.
Oh, yes, I did.
Many.
Yes, many.
But then you continued this journey towards ghazal singing and towards
I always,
maintaining that passion.
my focus was always ghazal singing, and I always wanted to, it's not only, I guess I've reached a stage in life now that for me, ghazal singing is not just a commercial venture that I pursue, or it's not something which I pursue for the sake of money or fame. I think I've reached a point in life that I pursue it because I'm very passionate about it. I want to spread it across the world, so that I want a whole lot of young, talented singers to take it up. Because if you want this particular genre to really prosper and go forward, then you need a bunch of young performers, young singers to come by and take it up seriously.
Yeah.
And for me, it's more of a mission now in life than just singing, performing. I think I have devoted nearly 40 years of my life to this form of music.
Right.
And I don't want that this form of music should suddenly vanish, or So
I agree.
So I certainly want that whatever I can contribute.
So one thing you said that when you approached the Urdu teacher and you said yourself, कि आप मुझे सिखाइए. We don't see that kind of dedication in ghazal singers today to focus on diction. What has changed? Why is it not that zeal to do things right and to do it perfectly?
I guess what I see, I'm not talking like an old man. I don't think I'm that old. But what I see today is that the level of patience has run out, and nobody wants to spend years together to pursue something, to achieve something. I guess there is a sense, there's a feeling that you want to achieve something very fast, you want to achieve lots, and you want to achieve it fast. And that's where I think even the artists, that's where the singers do not want to pursue this form of music, because I guess everyone wants a hit. So everyone wants that, you do something and, suddenly you become a YouTube sensation. You have 5 million, 10 million hits. And so I think ghazal singing basically calls for a very serious approach. And there maybe it's very conservative and it's very time-consuming as well. So I think you really need to have patience to pursue this form of music, to be successful. So, I mean, if any youngster who wants to follow or pursue this form of music, my advice is that you've got to be very patient. You got to learn to take everything in your stride in terms of success, or if you are unsuccessful also, because there is no guarantee that you can become an overnight sensation.
Good. So that's a good message for all our youngsters, hopefully some of us. So you see a lot of people sitting here. There are also people watching you over live stream, because we allow people who cannot come to this campus, allow them to be able to view the chat elsewhere. So you brought up YouTube. I wanted to ask you a little bit about what is your thought of technology into the world of music. We see a lot of your videos and ghazals and albums on YouTube. How do you feel that it has helped the music industry?
Well, it's a great platform for, I would say that no doubt for established singers, it's brilliant. But I would say even for singers who are struggling, singers who are trying to make it in life, or singers who are, YouTube has opened up a whole new avenue. Because let's face it, I'm talking about the Indian perspective. I'm not talking about the international perspective. But if you look at the Indian perspective, as far as India is concerned, I'm sure you know about India as much as I know, that in India there are two things which are the most popular, I would say, subjects in India. One is Bollywood and the other is cricket. I mean, there's nothing which is as popular as these two things in India. So when you talk about music, India always was dominated by Bollywood music, and not for now, but always. YouTube, fortunately, has opened up a new avenue for a whole lot of singers who cannot make it big in Bollywood, who may not make it big in Bollywood, or who probably do not have the means, or maybe they do not have an access to Bollywood. For all those singers, I think it's a great platform. If they have the talent, it will get recognized right away. And there couldn't be more, there couldn't be anything which could be more rewarding than YouTube, because you know it instantly. That if your song is popular on YouTube, you'll know by the number of hits, you'll know by the number of views, that how many views, and you'll immediately know that your song is liked by people. So I think it's a great platform. It's a wonderful platform.
Good, very nice. Another question I wanted to ask you was about the creative process, because people who do playback singing in Bollywood, you go there, somebody has done the lyrics, somebody has done the music, you just go memorize their part. But ghazal singing and producing an album, what you do,
Right.
figuring out this, share with us something about that whole creative process. How do you come up with the project? How do you select songs for it? What is the...
Well, when I started, I remember my early years of music. When you introduced me, you talked about albums like Ahat and Mukarrar. And, during that period, I remember that I had an option. I had a very dear friend, unfortunately, he's no more. He was a poet. Sheikh Adam Abuwala was his name, and he was a brilliant poet. He was kind of a guide, kind of someone who guided me regularly as far as Urdu poetry is concerned. So we were sitting one day and we were discussing as to how the Urdu poetry, the content is relevant to this generation of listeners. And we came to a conclusion that poets like Mirza Ghalib, Daag, Mir, all brilliant poets, Ustad poets as we call them. But in terms of the audiences, people had limited access to that Urdu,
True.
which was written somewhere in the 17th, 18th century. So we kind of took a conscious decision that why not approach the poetry in a different way so that we can reach out to larger audiences across the world. And the first ghazal we came across, which qualified or which suited our thought process, was "Aap jinke kareeb hote hain, wo bade khush naseeb." Because the poet who's written this ghazal, Nuh Narvi, is an old, he's a late 18th century poet.
Right.
But he wrote it so simply that "Aap jinke kareeb hote hain, wo bade khush naseeb hote hain." So very simple to understand, but wonderful meaning. Because as you know that in Urdu, when you talk about a couplet, it has about 20 different layers of meaning. It's not just one meaning. You can uncover so many layers. And when we try to figure out कि आप जिनके करीब होते हैं वो बड़े खुशनसीब होते हैं, you know, when you do a literal translation, it means that you're talking about some beautiful person who's very close to you, and you're so very fortunate to have that person. But then if you open up layers, then you realize that the poets, most of the poets they were Sufi. And they had such a major spiritual approach in life.
Right.
So actually, what the poet was trying to say is that it's God Almighty. People who have that superpower or that spiritual leader close to them,
Right.
जो आपके करीब होता है, वो खुशनसीब होते हैं कि जिनके पास ये दौलत होती है.
Right.
So that means that poetry is unbelievable and it's so simple,
Yeah.
but at the same time it's so very effective.
Yeah.
So that's when we started talking about the creative process. That's when I started focusing on poetry, which would have less of difficult Persian words, Arabic words,
Right.
more of Hindi Urdu. And that's how I got into this particular creative process.
And I think you're right. What you brought to the ghazal industry was an ability to others to enjoy, not just somebody who understands Urdu at
That's
that
right,
level.
yes,
But a
yes.
common man can also appreciate and learn it and
Oh, yes.
get involved.
And you'll be surprised that the kind of following which I have is beyond Hindi-speaking audiences. And I think that that really makes me feel wonderful. I think it's a great satisfaction to see. For example, last month I did a concert in a place called Calicut in Kerala,
Right.
and there were 6,000 people.
Wow.
And nobody would believe that 6,000 Keralites would understand what I'm singing.
Right.
But yes, they understand each and every word of what I sang because they have followed my music, they know my music, and they know what exactly I'm singing. So
Yeah.
I think that it's a great feeling to reach out to all these areas.
So continuing with this thought of creative process, I think one of the things we sent out to Googlers is
Yeah.
see if somebody could suggest some poetry or a couple of lines and
Right.
see how you fit music
Right.
to that. Because, like I said, reiterating that Bollywood is very different, but your creative process is about
Oh, yes.
taking the words, absorbing the meaning. So if you want to share, so a couple of Googlers sent some poetry, and
Yes,
Pankaj is going to look at that and
Yeah.
share with us some of the process that he goes through to put music around words.
G. Yeah, it's.
We are putting him on the spot a little bit.
I think I'll need my harmonium to
Of course,
work on this.
We can pull it. But I think in ghazal singing, music and the feeling of it is very
Yes.
important equally.
How do you express? Most important is your expression, because they say there is a very common expression. Most of the poets, they say that shairi, poetry, they say is ehsas. Poetry is not something which you can translate.
True.
It's something which you feel. If you don't feel it, then it's not right. So you've got to feel the words, you've got to feel the poetry. And that's what the words are all about.
This.
I'll try. कोशिश
Okay,
करता हूँ.
sure.
I'll try. These are the words which I'm saying for the first time, so I'll try to sing. Yeah, I'll try to sing them. भाषा के भले न कारीगर पर भावनाओं के भाषी हैं। भाषाओं के भले न कारीगर पर भावनाओं के भाषी हैं। शब्दों से खेल नहीं आता, हम जज्बात के भाषी हैं। भाषाओं के भले न कारीगर पर भावनाओं के भाषी हैं।
So you guys may not realize this, but we just took a printout of this this poem written by one of the Googlers and handed it to Pankaj and said, "Can you use this to compose?" So very, very impressive. That's
Thank you.
beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Now that he has the harmonium in front, I was going to ask him to sing the very famous song we were talking about, Chitti Aayi Hai, two lines. However, I want to request the audience, that doesn't mean you guys get up and leave for India, because it's a very emotional song, which is what happened in the movie. So.
No, but I must share this with you. Not to inspire you, any one of you, because I'm sure that you all are doing very well in life. I remember the reason why I used the word inspire, because I remember I was doing a concert in Jaipur, and there was this gentleman who came to see me after the concert and gave me a book, and he opened the front cover. And inside he had written that dedicated to Shri Pankaj Udhas. So I said, thank you very much for the dedication. He said, no, the reason why he had dedicated the book to me was that he was here in Silicon Valley, and he was a software engineer. And he said he was doing very well, extremely well. And he said, I'm talking about when Chitti Aayi Hai was... the film was released and in the late 80s. So he said he heard the song, and then he said he kept on listening to the song, and he said one fine day he just packed his bags and came back to India.
Wow.
And he said when he came back to India, he didn't know what he would do with his life, because here he had a fantastic job and whatever. So he said he tried his luck to, with a startup, start his own venture. And fortunately, he did extremely well, better than what he was doing here. So he said that inspired him to write the book about his life, and he dedicated the book to me. But that doesn't mean that you all leave and come back to India. But
next thing you know, these guys are all booking flights to India.
Thank you. Thank you. Shukriya.
Itni baar, I have heard this song so many times. Still, abhi bhi sunti hu, I get goosebumps and it brings, tears to my eyes. Beautiful, beautiful song. Changing gears a little bit, I wanted to talk a little bit about the non-profits
Yes.
that you're involved in.
Yes.
And if you want to share a little bit about that, and aap kaise involved हुए उसमें, क्या reason है?
I guess during my growing up days and during the process, I always felt that we as human beings could do so much for so many people who are probably less privileged, or people who are needy, people who need support, people who need help. And I always felt that when God has given you something very special, like a talent, you can share that talent to help somebody, because you are a chosen one, and that means that your responsibility becomes double, because that means that you are required to do something extra, something more. And I don't know, but all along my life, I didn't like the word charity, because I always felt that there is nothing like charity. I feel that what you do is your duty as a human being, that you do something for your fellow human being. You are not obliging him, or you're not doing charity. What you're doing is you're trying to help somebody. And I grew up with this attitude in my life. And I still remember that I was doing a concert in Mumbai for a fundraiser for children who have this genetical blood disorder called thalassemia.
Right.
And at that point, I had no clue. I had no idea as to what thalassemia is all about. So I was invited to visit the center where they were treating thalassemic children in Mumbai. And I went to visit the center, and I was taken around. And when I saw those children and when I saw their plight, I felt that there is something like being deprived. There is something like being unfortunate, especially those children, because this is such a dreaded blood disorder that the child needs a blood transfusion every 3 weeks. The child needs to take 1 injection every day, which is given through a pump. The pump is tied to the stomach for 8 hours every day. I mean, it's a whole process where you feel that what has the child done to go through all this? I was so moved. So I joined that organization, and I told them, I said, I'll work with you all. And I started working with them. It's nearly 30 years now that I've been working for them.
Oh.
The only, I wouldn't say consolation, but I would say the only bright part, or the only good part about this whole process is that when I joined the whole organization, there was no cure for thalassemia. Today, there is bone marrow transplant, which can cure the child of thalassemia, and the child leads a normal life.
Oh, very nice.
So what I have done is that we have focused on bone marrow transplant. In the last 3 years, we've got more than 50 children bone marrow transplant done in India. And today, those 50 children are jumping, running around. They have no thalassemia.
Wow.
So, Nida Fazli का एक शेर है. Nida Fazli says कि गली के नुक्कड़ पे बच्चा मुस्कुराता, गली के नुक्कड़ पे बच्चा मुस्कुराता, हैरान हूँ कोई काशी काबा क्यों जाता.
Wow. Wow.
He says कि you don't need to go to Kashi and Kaaba. You don't need to do anything. I mean, he says you look at this child and you see his smiling face and that's God right there.
That's true.
So मैं समझता हूँ कि हम लोगों का फर्ज बनता. If we are privileged, if we are blessed, then I think it's our duty to share it with a whole lot of people who need it.
That's such a noble thought, Pankaj.
Thank you.
I wish more and more celebrities and people who have achieved
Thank
what you have thought like that. I think the world could be such a different place.
Oh
you
yes,
know.
certainly.
Yeah, that's so very thankful to you for doing that. So a lot of people might not know this, that along with being such an amazing artist, you're also such an amazing human being. So please continue to do that, and we
Thank
would
you.
love to spread that information,
Please.
through our teams and make sure
Please.
that you
Yes.
get more support on that.
And thalassemia is nothing but awareness
Right.
because it's a genetically inherited blood disorder. So if there is awareness, then you can stop it for sure.
Sure. Thank you very much for sharing that. Now, I wanted to also ask you, what are the recent projects? If you can share about whatever you're working on, if it's not a super secret.
Well, I am. There is a kind of a secrecy
I thought as much.
but I'm working on a new project. As soon as I finish the North American tour, when I go back to India, I start working on that project. It's a project which involves another legendary artist whom I'm collaborating with.
Okay.
And we're working on a project which should be one of its kind, hopefully. And next time when I'm here at Google, I'll probably bring the CD and share it with you.
Perfect. That will be very nice. I know आपके कई गज़लें हैं जो जैसे एक तरफ उसका घर एक तरफ मैं कदा शराब चीज. So first of all, why are there so many ghazals around alcohol, sharab?
I think yesterday Sunny asked me the same question.
Oh, really?
On the radio, yeah. But मैं हमेशा ये कहता हूँ कि ये मेरा दोष नहीं है. This is not my fault. ये आपका दोष है.
कोई पिलाए तो.
नहीं, because what has happened is that all these numbers which you mentioned, they were not recorded in one day. They were not recorded in one album. These numbers happened over a period of 30 years.
I see.
But because you want to enjoy these songs and because you want to have your drink, so you compiled all these songs together. You have your playlist. And you say, okay, Pankaj Udhas, sharab cheezi aisi hai. Pankaj Udhas, sabko malum hai, sharabi nahi. Pankaj Udhas, thodi piya karo. But it's not my fault. I have never propagated this subject. I've been, in fact, in India, I've been approached to endorse these brands. I've been approached to endorse tobacco. I've been approached to endorse pan masala. But I have taken a policy decision that I would never ever endorse any of these brands because I don't want to encourage this stuff. So,
say again, this is a sign that you are thinking about things rather than just being an artist. Because
That's
I see
right.
a lot of popular Bollywood stars.
Yeah, they
just
endorse
endorsing
alcohol,
anything.
yes.
Yeah, anything.
But,
chips, soda, whatever we feel that we don't want our kids to be exposed to.
Yeah.
They're endorsing all those items. So we appreciate artists like yourself
Thank you.
who put some thought into it rather than just
That's
mere chug.
right.
So
Yes.
thank you. So why not one ghazal on that topic?
No, but I would instead sing. Someone was asking me, so the rest you can come for the concert and listen for sure. But I will. Chali jaisa hai wo. चांदी जैसा रंग है तेरा सोने जैसे बाल चांदी जैसा रंग है तेरा Thank you.
Such a beautiful song.